There is no such thing as proofreading in translation. This is a short video I published some days ago. Today I would like to make this detailed video to give more insight into what proofreading is all about. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Thomas Dakantari Kumabok, Senior English and French teacher, professional translator and author of De la sémantique à la traduction. Unlike what some clients believe, so-called proofreading in translation involve full revision work. And as a professional, I think it is tremendously important for us to raise awareness of the distinction between proofreading and revision, so that clients, and more precisely translation agencies, can reassess what these services are all about and how they should be priced. Strictly speaking, proofreading entails a monolingual revision, which involves checking a text for typos, spelling mistakes, omission, redundancies, punctuation. And this type of activity can be carried out individually. That is, you can write your text before you deliver it or before you publish it. You decide to review it, to check if everything is okay, as you are checking mistakes, punctuation, grammatical mistakes, coherence, and typos. This can be done individually, and this is restricted to one text. That is why proofreading, strictly speaking, should be considered as a monolingual exercise, not a bilingual exercise. It should be considered as a monolingual exercise. That said, in translation, what clients call proofreading is not actually the right terminology that should be used. So as I said in my short video I published some days ago, proofreading does not, we can say that proofreading does not exist in translation, because what client assign as proofreading is basically revision. Why? Because client assign two texts, the source text and the target text. There is the original text and its translation, and they ask you to proofread the text, that is to proofread the translation by comparing. So we have to fix this. This is not proofreading. This is bilingual revision. This is bilingual revision. And for us to discuss bilingual revision, we have to look at the works of some translation scholars who have examined this issue. I think about Jean Darbelnet in his article titled Niveau de traduction, published in 1977. Paul Horguelin and Louise Brunette in their book titled Pratique de la révision, published in 1998, and most importantly, Brian Mossop in his book titled Revising and Editing for Translators. Fundamentally, all these translation scholars discuss or underscore criteria guiding revision, namely parameters which surround the notion of revision. And in this video, we are not going to look at what all these translation scholars have said about revision. Here we are concerned with Brian Mossop, who has done a significant amount of work in this field, because His book Revising and Editing for Translators is a great book in the field. Anyway, as far as revision is concerned. So Brian Mossop in that book underscore 12 parameters which should guide revisers in the course of revising a text. So to tackle revision and understand what it's all about, we cannot discuss it by skipping by skipping those parameters, because those parameters have been, some of the parameters underscored by Brian Mossop have been highlighted in some way or the other by Jean Darbelnet and Paul Horguelin and Louise Brunette. So bilingual revision can only be tackled or defined in terms of these parameters. And as I said, Brian Mossop has underscored 12 parameters, which he has grouped under 4 main sections or groups. Namely, the group 1, group A, is problems of meaning or transfer. Under transfer or problems of meaning, Mossop discusses, emphasizes accuracy. Accuracy, there is the way does the translation reflect the meaning of the source text. That's the first or the most important point, the most important question under accuracy. And this is a thorny question, a thorny issue in translation studies, because nowadays with artificial intelligence, we have every kind of content, every kind of translated material, which is not always of high quality. So accuracy here has to do with whether the translated material reflect the meaning of the source text. We have to check whether the message of the target text is consistent with the message of the source text. And when we talk about the message here, in keeping with my inferential theory of translation, we have to make sure that the message blended with the intention is consistent with the message of the target text. That is, the message of the target text blended with its intention, in the speaker intent is conversant with the original message of the source text. And this is not a simple exercise. This is a challenging exercise because we have to take into account extra linguistic parameters like context, situation, implicatures, undertones, and many cultural nuances. So, under accuracy, as I said, Mossop asked this question: does the target message reflect the source message? And the other question that Brian Mossop asks here is, he raises the issue of completeness. What does he call completeness here under transfer? Completeness has to do with making sure that every aspect, every piece of information has been fully transferred. So we have to check that there is no significant information has been left out. If you have to refer to Paul Grice in his principles, in his stylistic principles, he talks about one of his maxim. I think it is maxim of Marner, where he discusses, where he says we have to check whether the information is fully transferred. So we have to make sure that we transfer the necessary information to the in the target language. So this is what Brian Mossop discussed under Group A, that is problems of meaning or transfer. Then we have Group B, problems of content. when we are revising. And here, Mossop question the sequence of idea. Does the sequence of ideas make sense? Is there any nonsense, both in the source text and the target text? Is there any contradiction? These are things we have to check. We have to check factual errors, because as I used to say in my video, the translator or reviser should understand that a text is not a medical prescription. This is not something that cannot be questioned. Sometimes we may have text with errors. So factual errors here have to do with error which can be spotted both in the target, both in the text, both in the source text and in the target text. That is what Brian Mossop calls problems of content. Then we have the third main the third group. The third group is problems of language and style, which he names language, the language parameter. The language parameter. Under the language parameter, Mossop underscore cohesion. That means the use of cohesive devices, and he asked whether the text, whether the wording of the text flows, whether the wording of the source or the target text flows. And for you to answer this question, you have to first of all check if the wording of the source text is actually acceptable. And he also raises issues like readability, idiomaticity, grammaticality. So under group C, problems of language, so he discusses grammaticality, naturalness, idiomaticity, readability, style, cohesion, and how the text is actually flowing. And finally, that's the last group of parameters, is problem related to visual rather than verbal aspect. This has to do with presentation. There is a layout. Here we have to check the organization of the whole text by looking at the font. We look at the font. We look at font types, bolding, underlining, spacing, margins, and so on. Anyway, how the text is arranged. But this type of exercise can be done by a DTP expert. So based on these parameters, especially the parameters raised by Mossop, because he is one of the translation scholar who really carry out a profound study of this notion of proofreading, of revision. So what is crucially in these parameters, when we look at these parameters, we see that revision is not what people think. And that's why I don't always agree with people who say that, with clients who say that we need linguists who can revise 1,000 words per hour. This is not rational. This is not feasible, unless you are just skimming the text. But if you have to revise the text, there's no way you can tell me that you will revise the text, you will revise 1,000 words per hour. This is not possible if you have to take into account all these parameters raised by Brian Mossop. And now, the question is, given the fact that clients misuse this concept, instead of saying revision, they call it proofreading, how should translators or reviser react to this situation? What we can say, and what I think, is that it is incumbent on the translators and reviser to ask clients to review how they pay these services. So when you receive an offer, if the client asks you if you can carry out a proofreading task, the question you need to ask the client is this mere proofreading, that is monolingual proofreading, or is this bilingual revision? Based on the answer from the client, you will know how to quote, how to provide a quote. So the bottom line here is to defend your expertise so that client pay translation and translation, proofreading and revision, so that they can pay it fairly. So as a translator, you should not accept any rate. You should not accept insulting rates. You should not accept to be dragged into any kind of exercise in order to receive any kind of insulting payment just because you are trying to make a living. No. You have to respect yourself if you want people to respect you. And the only way you can respect yourself is by setting rules and letting people know that your services are governed by a set of rules which everybody has to follow. That is what we can say about this video. If you find the content insightful, please drop your comment under the comment section below. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and share. And if you need any further detail concerning my contact information, please just check the description below. Thank you for watching.